Hi, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about the business of yoga. And I'm going to start off just by talking a little bit about my philosophy on yoga, social media, and marketing. When I first started practicing and teaching yoga publicly, I really was sort of enchanted by the Insta yogis and the Insta stars or the influencers in the yoga community or what I thought were influential teachers. I'll just throw out a few names and you can just sort of percolate on each one as I throw them out. But, it might be Sean Korn or it might be Rodney Yee. It might be Patabi Jose or Kinyo McGregor. It might be Yoga with Adriene, or it might be Annie Carpenter. It could be any of those people, but I would look at those people and I'd say, wow, they have a product to sell. They have, really huge social media, marketing sort of communities, and they have a really great website. They must really be self-sufficient and sustainable, and they must have a really big following of authentic and real students. And the more that I sort of played around with Instagram and with Facebook and with marketing and website, web development, the more I started to understand that a lot of that was a misunderstanding. In this section of training, we're going to talk to you about different tools that you can use just to identify, your competition and sort of look and see how their traffic compares to yours, both on their website and in Instagram. And what you'll find is that when you really do the research and you do due diligence around these people that you think are influencers, it actually turns out that they're not really as influential as you thought they were, and that their business isn't as sustainable as it looks from the outside. So that was one of the things that I learned early on, and knowing that helped me to really fly under the radar for a long time and create a sustainable business that I could scale. So the first thing I want to talk about is creating that, brand or that presence in the yoga community. And if you go into that thinking that you need a lot of followers or that it needs to look a certain way, then likely you will hit a wall at a certain point. You're not going to be able to really go much further. And what I mean by that is, the first go round when I was just starting to teach, I started to build my social media brand. And I did it really quickly, and it was all authentic. And people did register for my trainings from that outlet, but not anything that was sustainable, even though I had tens of thousands of followers. But I did create some communications and some relationships with people that made me feel really grounded and validated and complete. And actually, it sort of stoked my ego a little bit, which is fine. That's part of the human experience. But after a point, and I actually wrote about this in our blog, I decided that that wasn't the type of teacher I wanted to be, and that ultimately I was sort of activating other teachers around me because I looked so huge on Instagram. And so I deleted that account and I really started from scratch. When I started from scratch, everything became more branded and it became less about me and more about the mission and what I was trying to achieve by putting these products and services out into the world. When I did that, everything changed. And I did start attracting people and I did start to, have a more sustainable income that went fairly quickly from, around, I don't know, I think I was making like $50,000 or $60,000 a year to, six figures and then beyond. Now, when I got to that six-figure mark, that's when I started hiring people and I started sharing sort of the responsibilities because that's what I needed to do to scale. But if I hadn't done that, if I had just stopped there, that would have been totally fine. But I decided I really wanted to work with people. I decided I really wanted to create something that was scalable, that we could, use to create more jobs in the yoga industry and to really change the way we did things in yoga. So the more that I worked sort of nose to the ground and didn't worry about inflating my ego, the bigger the company got. And it really wasn't about me as much as it was about this community of teachers that were all having the opportunity to experience different things, from teaching live stream classes to teaching in studio to helping to lead yoga teacher trainings. Like, I really wanted it to be, a robust and thriving business. And that's how you scale. Never, even now, have I been at a point where I'm like, it's all about me, let's make my personal Instagram big, or let's brand the company after me. That's because for me, that scenario really wasn't sustainable long term, and I could see how it would impact my ego and take me in a direction that I didn't really want to go in. So I knew enough about myself to know that that wasn't my path, and that wasn't how I wanted the company to grow. As we move through these different sections, we're going to be talking about all of the components that you need to consider to create any business. But the business of yoga is different. A lot of times we look at people and we think, oh my gosh, that person is such a successful teacher, they're so great, they're amazing. And when we dig a little deeper, we find out that actually that person isn't what we think they were at all. This is an important thing to discuss when we're talking about the business of yoga, because I do feel like sometimes really talented teachers that have a lot to offer hold back because they think they can't be as big as so-and-so. They think they'll never have a following like so-and-so. And that's just a misunderstanding. It's not actually true. My teacher's teacher, Annie Carpenter, is a very famous teacher. People know Annie Carpenter. She's trained hundreds of people. But if you look at Annie Carpenter compared to My Vinyasa Practice, and you look at how many people Annie Carpenter has trained and how many people we've trained, there's a big difference. And partially because of the way we do training, but partially because of our values and how we're trying to really make yoga accessible. Ultimately, every teacher, every business has its own mission, and ours is to uplift the collective consciousness. You can't do that with high price points and exclusivity. So when you're starting to think about your business, there are a few things that you want to note. Don't compare yourself to others. Remember that your perspective of another yoga teacher isn't actually necessarily true, and don't forget that your values and your belief systems are the foundation for your business. Check in with yourself and identify what your values are, what your beliefs are around yoga and yoga businesses, and then cultivate a business and a business plan that is going to help you to fulfill those values and beliefs in community as you move throughout your career. The yoga industry is a very cutthroat industry. It never ceases to amaze me how our personalities can play such a huge role in business, but they do. Ideally, business would be a clean endeavor, and we would just move in and out of relationships based on what made most sense for the business. All too often, our own personal feelings get caught up in our business, and our projection of what we believe to be true or our assumptions of what we think of others get in the way. Really remind yourself that we only know what we know, and our lived experience is what impacts and influences our perception of reality. Forgive yourself for buying into the idea that you can't be the next Shiva Ray. If that's what you want to be, you can do it, I promise you. If you let go of the limiting beliefs that are keeping you from stepping into your potential and starting the next big thing, then you really will be able to start the next big thing. And that is ultimately my wish for you, that you live into your potential and that you create something that is values-based and helps to uplift the collective, because that's really what teachers want, is to be part of the change.